Hi friends, and welcome to another video. Today I'm sharing with you my July wrap up, talking about all the books that I read during that month. It was another quite successful reading month for me, I feel, which is awesome. So I'll just include like the stats and stuff here before we get into the actual reviews of the books. So with that all done, let's get into the books. I've done a couple of reading vlogs through July, so anything that's included in that I won't talk about too much, but I'll just direct you to other videos and such. So the first one is exactly that. I did a Studio Ghibli themed reading vlog at the start of the month, and the first book I picked up for that was Kikis Delivery Service by HardcoreCupcakeHailstorm. I absolutely love this movie, and so it was one of the ones that I gravitated towards when I wanted to try the books. I'm also hoping to do a book versus movie review on it as well, so if you want to kind of see what I thought in a different format, there will be that video, I think hopefully at the end of this month at some point. But to quickly go through the stats, this is illustrated by Joe Todd Stanton. It originally came out in 1985, and it's kind of like slice of life, contemporary, middle grade, published by Penguin Random House. I really adored this one. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I rated it individually for believability, escapism and world building a 4, but characters were a 3. But there's other factors, as of course, that goes into my overall rating. That's just some of the interesting ones that I thought I'd note. But yeah, I really did enjoy this one. As I say, got a reading vlog on it if you want more kind of as that live time reading, and then hope to have a review comparing it to the movie at the end of this month. But that is the first book I finished in July. Now the next book I have is one that I borrowed from the library, so I don't have it to hand anymore because I've since returned it, and that was The Water Babies by Charles Kingsley, which was published in 1863. So it's a classic, kind of like, I don't know if you'd say fantasy, maybe like a fairy tale kind of vibe, published by Oxford University Press. I gave this one a 2.5 out of 5 stars. So for everything that I usually highlight in these videos, I rated it around a 2. But it was a strange little book. It was kind of like, as I say, a classic fairy tale-esque story. We're following this little boy called Tom, who's a chimney sweep, and he's really poorly looked after, and in turn it kind of makes him quite a cruel little character to be around. One day he finds himself drowned in a lake, but children of a certain age, they never really die. When they die by drowning, they turn into water babies, and they have like another go at life, is sort of the story around it. And yeah, so he begins his journey as a little water baby, and it's kind of the ultimate goal is to get him to understand his cruel ways and give him a do-over at life to hopefully be a better version of him. And eventually these water babies will grow up to become human adults again, so it is like a do-over basically. I thought it was a really charming story, but it was quite nonsensical. It was also very preachy in its viewpoints of the day, which I didn't really necessarily like, coming from, I don't know, a very sexist kind of racist time period. And yeah, it's one that won't stay in my mind very long, but you know, it was fine as I was reading it. I have a couple of quotes for this one, but I will just choose one to read here. Her hair was as white as the snow, for she was very old. In fact, as old as anything which we are likely to come across, except for the difference between right and wrong. Next up, I listened to a book through the BorrowBox app, which I think sometimes is called Libby as well. I think they're like the same sort of catalogue. This is No Gods, No Monsters by Cadwell Turnbull. I listened to the audio of it and it was read by Dion Graham. This was a 3 out of 5 stars rating for me. It came out last year in September. It's literary fiction, kind of like magical realism, fantasy sort of vibe, published by Blackstone Publishing, and everything that I would highlight in terms of like characters, etc. I gave it 3 stars. So I don't really know, I can't really summarize what it's about eloquently enough, so I'm just going to quickly hop onto Goodreads and give you guys a little snippet of what to expect from this book. One October morning, Lena gets the news that her brother was shot and killed by Boston cops. It's like a case of police brutality soon reveals something much stranger. Monsters are real, and they want everyone to know it. As creatures from myth and legend come out of the shadows seeking safety through visibility, their emergence sets off a chain of seemingly unrelated events. Members of a local werewolf pack are threatened into silence. A professor follows a missing friend's trail of breadcrumbs to a mysterious secret society. And a young boy with unique abilities seeks refuge in a pro-monster organisation with secrets of its own. Meanwhile, more people start disappearing, suicides and hate crimes increase, and protests erupt globally, both for and against the monsters. At the centre is a mystery no one thinks to ask. Why now? What has frightened the monsters out of the dark? The world will soon know. So this is one of those instances where I actually wish that I had read it physically rather than listened to the audio book, because I found that I wasn't truly ever focused enough, and I wanted to be, but it just didn't hook me. And it was nothing to do with the narrator or anything like that. It was just a general circumstantial situation, I think. So on top of that, I was overwhelmed by the amount of characters that we had to follow. I could never keep track of what was going, and I think that's what had me in and out of focusing, because I couldn't keep track already. So in my mind I was like, well, let's zone out, you know. Also, there's quite a lot of different plots which were so cleverly woven but so intrinsic that I just couldn't catch hold of each of the threads and follow along well enough, I feel. But I think had I have read the pages, looked at the words, seen it properly in that way, it would have been a more beneficial experience for me, and I think I might have rated it a little bit higher. So I'm not opposed to going back again and reading through it physically to see if that makes a difference. I feel like it might, but I don't know if or when that day will come. However, I will say the themes in this were absolutely amazing. I just love it when they take real world themes and issues and problems and they weave it together with these like magical realism, fantastical elements, and it just feels so real and believable. I just think it's such a clever talent to be able to do that, and this definitely had that. Types of monsters were fascinating. I was not expecting the varied species that we had to display. I would actually love short stories following each like group a little bit more, each individual character a little bit more, because I really think a whole world can be built with this by this author. You can definitely see that they have an amazing writing style, an amazing gift for writing, and I absolutely love how it had a great black and LGBT plus rep. I just thought it was so well done, but unfortunately I just couldn't keep up with the listening of it. The narrator though did have an engaging and rich voice, so I did enjoy all the different details and enunciations and tones he used for the different characters. I'm just gutted that I couldn't keep up with it audibly. So the quote that I picked out for this was, "Even those who didn't believe in God knew not to tempt the devils." Okay, back to a physical read. This one was a buddy read that I read with Jem from Read a Book Jem on Instagram and BookTube, and this is the Tenant of Wild haul. We actually brought this read a little bit more forward. We was initially intending to read it around autumn time, because we had another series that was going to take us up to around that time that we were reading together, but unfortunately both of us decided to DNF the rest of those books, and so it made sense to kind of just push our next read up higher, and that's what we did. And this was that read. It's by Anne Bronte, and I gave it a 4.5 stars. I actually ended up doing a audiobook and physical blend with this. So I listened to one read by Katie Carmichael and Piers Weiner, like a little bit later on, maybe around this mark is when I sort of started listening to it, and then I got through it quite quickly, and then I'd catch up in the evenings reading it physically, reading along with the audio. It was such a good experience getting through this one. So this is a classic historical published by the beautiful Penguin Classics edition. This is how it looks, very gorgeous, plant all around it. I do find though, which is a little bit annoying, the type of material they use, it really rubs off, particularly on the spine, quite easily, so that's a little bit annoying, but generally speaking it's a beautiful edition. For believability, escapism and characters I gave it 5 stars, and for world building I gave it 3 stars, just because it didn't feel that rich in detail. You're only really following a very secluded area, which was well done, but it just didn't feel, it felt like a little isolated area taken out of real life. Do you know what I mean? Like there wasn't much connecting it to real world, I feel. But yeah, I loved how bold and modern our heroine Helen is, especially for this time. She was a really great main character, and I really respected how adamant she was in her beliefs, how bold and strong she was as a female character at this time. I just thought she was amazing. As well, like the way she felt like she didn't have to answer to anyone just because, what, for polite sake? No, why should I answer you invasive questions just because it's polite and good reason to? You shouldn't be asking these questions anyway. I don't know you like that, you know what I mean? Like I loved how she responded to those sort of things, and how sure she was of herself and her reasoning, and how she didn't have to answer to anyone. I also enjoyed the small town hostility depiction that we had, and you can really see how that then does change our main character, how all she's getting is this sort of slanderous curiosity that is definitely going to make you not want to be around those people that are spreading those things, you know, but that in turn racked up this mystery around her and made everyone kind of spread rumours and gossip even more. So it was a really interesting sort of character study, small town study, that sort of thing. I really enjoyed that. I wasn't expecting Helen's past through her diaries to be the majority of the text, but I really liked how that fleshed out the story, how you got to know what was happening, and also because you were reading it as she gave the letters to a character and you was reading it from that character's perspective, you sort of learn as they did why this whole situation came to be, and I really enjoyed how the truth of it was unravelled. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. 4.5 out of 5 stars. A couple of quotes. I will choose one. Oh, I beg your pardon. I perceive Cupid's arrows have been too sharp for you, the wounds being more than skin deep, and not yet healed, and bleed afresh at every mention of the loved one's name. Some of the language in the conversations was just so witty. Like, I'd read it and be like, oh, I see what you're saying there. I see what you did. That's quite funny. I just loved, like, some of the subtle spite, you know. Okay, another buddy read, this time with Deborah from Hills of Books. Well, I actually forgot that we were reading this that month, but she reminded me and I quickly jumped on. I think we both forgot we were supposed to start it on the 6th of the month, and she started it a week later and just said, oh yeah, week later, but I've started, and I was like, oh crap, I forgot this was happening. So we both jumped on around like the 12th, 13th of the month, and that was for A Fatal Family Truth, which I had through NetGalley. And the annoying thing is, I pushed on with this one because I wanted to tick it off my NetGalley like list, and they've removed it from the app, so I don't know why. Yeah, it's not there. I can't actually leave a review for it on the actual site, which is annoying because I did not enjoy this book, unfortunately. I gave it a 1 out of 5 stars. It's by Samantha Marks, and it came out in 2015, so it's like one of the longest books, like eldest books I've got on my Kindle TBR, so I'm glad to have ticked that off now. It's YA, urban fantasy, kind of shifter fantasy, and I don't know who it's published by, but I just gave everything like a 1 star. I felt I did not enjoy this. It's basically about a teenager. She comes home one day to find her house trashed, her dad beaten and her mum missing, and I think you're following like 2 years later. Her mum's still missing. It's kind of like a case closed situation. Nobody's been able to locate her. Nobody knows if she's alive or dead or what, and she's sort of just going on about her life. She has a mysterious neighbour. She keeps getting mysterious gifts, and slowly but surely she finds she has shape-shifting gifts, and realises maybe there's more to her mum's disappearance than meets the eye. But unfortunately, I just did not enjoy it. It had quite a basic writing style. The main character was incredibly whingy. I just couldn't tolerate it. I really couldn't tolerate it. The plot was tedious. The representation in this was awful. There was a trans character, and oh my god, the way they wrote, it pained me to read. Honestly, it was not the best. So yeah, I think this is definitely a series DNF. I will not be continuing with it. The next book I read was also part of my Studio Ghibli reading vlog, and that was My Neighbor Totoro, it was created first as the film by Miyazaki, and Sugiko Kubo wrote it down, like the novelization of it, and it was translated by Jim Herbert into English. And I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. Originally it published in 1988. It's slice of life, fantasy, magical realism again, published by Viz Media, and everything I could give it was a 5 stars. It was beautiful. So if you don't know the story of My Neighbor Totoro, we are following a family of a father and 2 sisters, Satsuki and Mei. Satsuki is the older way of saying May, like the month May, and May is the newer way of saying May, so they're both called May, which is funny. As they move to a rural kind of countryside home to be closer to the hospital of their mother, who's currently trying to recover from, I can't remember what she's got, I cannot remember, but she's at like this specialist hospital to help her get better. And they have these just magical adventures with Totoro. They become closer to nature. It's beautiful. It's such an amazing story. I really loved it. It's just such a sweet story. I loved it. I realise I'm rambling now. Let's not go into depth because I've done a reading vlog for it. And I'm also hoping to do a movie versus book review of this as well. A later date. Probably won't get to it this month. I'm not too sure. And the quote I picked out for this one was, "The heavens were an ocean of sound, rising and fading away, sounds without sounds." And I just thought that was so perfect. Like, it really captures that. Like, I can just imagine it. Like, even, I don't know, even looking at the leaves swaying, like the grass swaying in just a slight bit of breeze, there's no sound to it, but it almost has its own sound. I don't know, I just thought that was so beautiful. So yeah, loved this one. Would definitely recommend. Anything Studio Ghibli related I adore. So next up, I listened to another audiobook, and this was called Lot by Brian Washington, and it was read by the author. And unfortunately, I didn't enjoy this as much as I was hoping to. I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars. It published last year in March, and it's literary fiction, adult, LGBT+. Published by, well, this particular one was Belinda Audio, but I don't know what the physical book is actually published under. Believability and escapism, I gave it 5 stars. Characters, 3 stars. World building, 1 star. And it's a series of short stories, really, showing multiple characters, everyday life. It's kind of a bit of a slice of life, to be honest. Let me get you up a proper synopsis so it explains a little bit more. Stories of a young man finding his place among family and community in Houston from a powerful emerging American voice. In the city of Houston, a sprawling, diverse microcosm of America, the son of a black mother and a Latino father is coming of age. He's working at his family's restaurant, weathering his brother's blows, resenting his older sister's absence, and discovering he likes boys. This boy and his family experience the tumult of living in the margins, the heartbreak of ghosts and the braveries of the human heart. The stories of others living and thriving and dying across Houston's myriad neighborhoods are woven throughout to reveal a young woman's affair detonated setting across an apartment complex, a ragtag baseball team, a group of young hustlers, the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey, a local drug dealer who takes a Guatemalan teen under his wing, and a reluctant chupacabra. Brian Washington's brilliant, viscerally drawn world leaps off the page with energy, wit, and the infinite longing of people searching for home. With soulful insight into what makes a community, a family, and a life, Lot is about love in all its unsparing and unsteady forms. And that in itself is amazing, and I definitely got that. Oh, by the way, it seems like it was actually published first in 2019, but this audio version was probably a later publication. But yeah, I just felt like, sadly, although I could really see the value and merit in it, the representation, everything, like, I just struggled to mesh with any of the characters. I couldn't really get into that. I don't know if it was because I didn't get enough time with each of them or what. I do sometimes find that is my main takeaway when I do read short story collections, especially if it's a rather small collection and there's quite a lot of stories in there. It's just such snippets that I can't always attach and appreciate a character like well-roundedly. I don't know if it's just a me thing or what, but I felt like I was whizzing through everything and I was struggling to keep up to each individual, you know, on a personal level. I am hoping to get on better with Memorial, which is his more full-length book. As I can see, that author has talent, so I'm hoping to enjoy his more long-form writing, and I've had Memorial for a while now. I have it through NetGalley and I have a physical copy, so yeah, hopefully I get on better with that one. After that, I started volunteering at the library doing the summer reading challenge for the kids, and I read a couple of books there whilst it was quiet, and I didn't want to go too far away from my post, so I just picked up some of the children's books, and one of those was When We Say Black Lives Matter by Maxine Beneba Clark, and I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. It released in 2020. It's non-fiction, poetry and children, and I'm not sure who the publisher is. But yeah, it literally says what it is on the tin. It is a lyrical kind of account of what Black Lives Matter really means. It was poetic, it was powerful. The illustrations, which were also by the author, were awesome. It sort of looked like crayons in like texture and medium, but stained glass in style, which was such a funky kind of combination that I hadn't seen before, but it was definitely memorable, that's for sure. And keeping on a similar vein of books that I just randomly read during my little shift at the library, I picked up Pride, the story of Harvey Milk and the Rainbow Flag by Rob Sanders, illustrated by Stephen Salerno. This one came out in 2018 and it is non-fiction, middle grade. Again, I'm not sure what the publisher is, but yeah, this was super inspirational. It told all about the story of how the rainbow flag for LGBT plus got its colours, got its idea, the story behind that. Very inspirational. Loved the colours and the art style of the illustrations, and I enjoyed that it had some biographies and timelines and that sort of nature at the back for accuracy and more of like a linear timeline of events. So I did another reading vlog, and this one was picking up some of my Fairy Loot and Illuma Crate books. I'm still currently filming that one, but I basically just wanted to kind of backtrack and go through all the books that I got from those subscription boxes and see if I could determine which one was the box for me that I could subscribe to more long term, and have better luck enjoying the books, you know what I mean, rather than keeping all these different ones on the go. I just kind of wanted to see what was more perfect for my taste personally, and so yeah, I've tried Fairy Loot and Illuma Crate. I've currently stopped both of them, but that was kind of the focus on it, and it sort of fell into a little bit of a fairy tales and retellings kind of vibe, but yeah. So the first one for that I picked up was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I don't know why I didn't write down release dates etc in this one, but it came out in 2021, and yeah, it's YA fantasy romance published by Hodder and Stoughton with Fairy Loot. I gave it a 4.5 stars. The believability, escapism and world building I gave it 5 stars, and the characters I gave it 4 stars. And if you want more information about the book and my thoughts and feelings and kind of at the time reactions, feel free to check out that vlog. Alrighty, next up I listened to another audiobook. This time I bought it with my credits on Audible, and this was The Spooks Mistake, which is book 5 in the Wardstone Chronicles by Joseph Delaney, and this was read by Thomas Judd. It originally came out in 2008, published by Red Fox, and is a middle grade kind of fantasy horror book, I would say. I gave the believability and escapism 5 stars and the rest 4 stars, and overall I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. So I haven't picked up one of these books for years. It's quite a long, extensive series, and I was looking at my shelves and I was like, man, I really want to get back into it. I need to continue on, and that is what I did. So I thought, let me try out an audiobook version, and oh my god, it was a great experience. I didn't realise how much I had missed these books. We're following the Spooks Apprentice, so there is a character called Tom who, because he's the 7th son of the 7th son, there's actually a movie called The 7th Son which is about this is the same book. Yeah, because he's the 7th son of the 7th son, he has to be sort of commissioned, but go into the, oh my god, what's the word, the profession of a Spooks Apprentice, which is basically the magical caretaker of whichever village they reside in. They basically look after the town, village, whatever, from supernatural evil creatures that wish to do harm to the town and their people. They protect them from that, whether that's banishing, capturing, that sort of stuff, maybe murder, we don't know. So yeah, that's kind of like the story, and we jumped back into the 5th book, so I don't want to spoil what happens in that, but it continued on with that, and I didn't actually find that I was lost at all. Like, I got back into it quite easily, which is really helpful. I loved the most about this was Tom's development as a character, how he slowly, in just this book alone, became more sure of himself in his apprenticeship as a spook, and also as like just a 14-year-old boy. Like, he was getting his confidence up, and it was really nice to read about. And I also loved learning about the new water monsters that was included in this book. I thought it was so cool. Anything water monster, if it touches mermaids even the tiniest bit, I am here for, honestly. So yeah, I really did enjoy this one, and I can't wait to continue on. I've actually got the physical version of the book 6 out from the library, and I think I've requested quite a few from the library, so I keep checking every time I go past. So yeah, the quote for that one I picked out was, "The difference between find and friend is 1 letter." Next up, I think this is the last for physical books, and literally like the second to last book of the whole month. I picked up the 3rd volume of The Girl from the Other Side by Nagabe, and I love this. I think this is definitely my favourite out of the series so far, so I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. This one released in 2017. It's YA horror fairy tale, published by the 7 Seas. Everything I gave it a 5 stars for. I really enjoyed it. We're following a character called Shiva, a little girl, and Teacher, who is this kind of monstrous creature, and they live in the outside. They're not allowed to touch each other, because if he touches her, it's very likely that she will turn into the outsider, which is like a curse. And you slowly learn over the volumes, or it begins to slowly unravel, why she was left outside in the first place, and this particular volume really goes into that a bit more, which I very much enjoyed. As I say, definitely my favourite of the books so far. I loved learning more about Shiva's connection to the curse, a bit more about her auntie as well, and it was quite emotional, so I did really enjoy those aspects to it. Okay, and the final book that I read for July was The Midnight Fair, which is another example of reading a random children's book in the library during a shift. And this one is written by Gideon Sierra and illustrated by Maria Chira Di Giorgio. This came out in 2020. It's middle grade picture books, slice of life kind of thing, published by Walker Books. What are you doing, little one? It was literally a silent story of these zoo animals at at night time going into an amusement park and enjoying all the rides and the games that are there, and it was very sweet. I loved the illustrations, loved that it was a silent story, really quick read, and it was just definitely a nice little end to the reading month, and I gave that one a 3 out of 5 stars. So that is it. Those are all the books that I read during July. Another good reading month, I would say. I'm also thinking of trying to go on a book buying ban, a no buy. Why can't I say that? See, I don't even want to do it. My words won't even let me say it. But I'm planning on doing that for at least August, potentially the rest of the year. I know it's going to be a struggle. I know that I'm also expecting to get one book in at least on August, because I pre-ordered Fairy Loot edition of a book, and that's apparently coming around August time. But yeah, I've got to really try and whittle down all the books that I do have before buying more. I say this to myself every time and I never do it. So that is what I'm hoping to do for the coming months. Hopefully see some good savings as well. But yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you've been reading during the month of July, what your favourite, least favourite book was. I would love to hear it. And I'll speak to you in another video soon. Bye!